Good morning, Internet. For the next 90 minutes, you are there. We are here. And helping you set the best money-making lineups possible is the goal for all of you season-long peeps in the playoffs. We'll help you too. BTW, she's the wonderful Jessie Coffield. I'm Emerson Lotzia. This show called The Sweat.
The Sweat. Now, before we bring in the three bro-migos, let's get you caught up on some injury news and notes. Like Odell Beckham Jr., As many of you know, he's been ruled out. T.Y. Hilton will play. Isaiah Crowell and Doug Martin are expected to play. And Kiki Kuti will be a game-time decision, but trending towards not playing.
All right, Chief Star safety Eric Berry still not expected to play despite practicing for the last 2 weeks. And Sam is back. Sam Darnold, after missing the last 3 weeks, will start for the Jets. So there's no better time than now to introduce you to these three gentlemen. DK Live's Reed Fowler. There's Jeff Ulrich in the middle. Julian Edlow, looking like Julian Edlow on the right of your screen.
Oh, wow. Good morning to all of you guys.
Julian Edlow, Emerson.
Yeah, good stuff. Very, very good mystery solver. Good job,
handsome.
Emerson. All right, Jeff, no OBJ for the Giants. What's the fantasy impact of this injury? This is NFL Spin Move, by the way, if you didn't know, putting a fantasy spin on some of this news here.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting spot. I think most people are just going to gravitate towards Saquon Barkley. I think it's definitely going to increase his ownership in big GPPs today. I think a lot of people were undecided between Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey. With Barkley being a little bit cheaper than McCaffrey, I think you're going to see an ownership bump with him. I think most people will just be expecting a couple more targets for Barkley, and that's possible. I'm looking at some of these peripheral players, like an Evan Ingram. I think people don't realize we basically practiced in full this week. He seems healthy. He's a logical person to get a couple more targets today. Sterling Shepard, obviously, in that mix too. I don't think I'd go any deeper than that. But Shepard, Ingram, both on the board for me as at least dart throws today at their positions.
Julian, do you agree with that?
Yeah, for the most part. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is the guy that already gets the lion's share of the touches in that offense. So now with the other, heavy hitter in that offense out, Saquon's obviously going to be relied on more to make the big plays in that offense. I do think Sterling Shepard's in a really interesting spot considering his price point, especially at 4,400. Now he's kind of in play as, who's the better play between him and Cortland Sutton, who's at 4,500, who's, thrusted into potentially a bigger role after Emmanuel Sanders suffered that Achilles tear. So I think that's a really interesting price point. The only other thing in terms of like an off-the-wall type play would be Russell Shepard at 3,200. He did catch 2 passes for 59 yards and a touchdown last week, although that long touchdown was thrown by Odell Beckham Jr., I believe. So Eli Manning would have to find him this time around, but Russell Shepard is a potential guy at 3,200 if you want to go down there for a really deep tournament play that could make some noise.
Reed, no OBJ. Who's looking good to you now?
Yeah, I think Sterling Shepard is someone that price point, like Julian was mentioning, right, is someone that you have to consider. He's probably going to get the chalk in that price range. Cortland Sutton has a better matchup, but right now you're tying the receivers to the quarterbacks. Who's better, Case Keenum or Eli Manning? Right, that's a tough one. I'd probably go with Case Keenum in that stack. But if you look at Evan Ingram too, when he was healthy, to Jeff's point, look, he only saw 30 to 32% of those snaps. Rhett Ellison is someone that's getting snaps over Ingram. This could have been just because he was trying to nurse back to that injury. But again, Washington against tight ends are top 10 in DVOA. So that scares you a little bit, right? That we haven't seen Ingram in this spot yet. Obviously, with OBJ out last year, we saw Ingram in his rookie season do really well. The targets do go up for both Shepard and Ingram. They're good GPP plays. I think I would stay away from Shepard on that chalk and just go with Sutton.
Reed, not an ideal start to the fantasy playoffs for James Conner owners, but how good of a spot is Jalen Samuels in today? And would you consider rostering this dude? Only like $3,700 here on Draftkings.
Yeah, this is the second week in a row, right? The Raiders get sort of the backup quarterback in this sub 4K chalk. Jalen Samuels obviously gets that dual eligibility in Yahoo leagues at running back and tight end. I know it's been a huge topic on Twitter. Does he deserve that eligibility? Outside of that, I think this is a nice matchup for the running backs in Pittsburgh. But I also think Roethlisberger is in a good GPP spot as well. I mean, this guy, in terms of how they want to win, right? Oakland, in terms of what they're doing, what they give up, a ton to the running backs, but also if you look at that matchup, right, Antonio Brown, I think this is a prime spot for him. Roethlisberger is expensive, so you're going to have to pay up. I think that gets ownership off of him. But Jalen Samuels, you look at the Raiders, giving up 171 rush yards over the last 7 games. They've just been a sieve. So absolutely be careful about Stephen Ridley. He might vulture some of those touches, but yeah, Samuels is in a good spot.
Where do you sit on this one, Julian? And how chalky do you expect him to be at that price?
Extremely chalky. The only thing necessarily saving us some potential ownership here is because of how many running back injuries we have this week. In San Francisco, Jeff Wilson is going to be the featured guy there at 3,800. We don't know exactly what the Austin Eckler, Justin Jackson timeshare is going to be for the Chargers, but they're going up against a terrible Bengals team that was already a terrible run defense there, and he's 3,800 and looked really good last week when he got touches against the Steelers. So there's a lot of really good running back value on this slate, but I do think that Samuels is going to be the most popular, and I do think that Samuels is in the best spot. Stephen Ridley might get a couple of those touches in there, but just go back to week 1 when we were scared, like, do we play James Conner or not? And then they plugged him right into that Le'Veon Bell role, and he got 1 million touches and scored whatever he scored, 30-something Draftkings points. So don't be surprised at the end of the day. Like, don't be the guy that's like, oh, I faded Samuels, and then he's got 38 Draftkings points, because they can plug him right into that Le'Veon Bell role against a horrible Oakland run defense.
Jeff, what do you expect out of Jalen Samuels today?
I expect a lot. I mean, look, I talked about this earlier in the week. Jalen Samuels, to me, is a more talented back than James Conner. And for fantasy purposes, he fits in perfectly with DraftKings scoring. He's a terrific receiver. His floor is probably going to be reached just in the PPR range, just in passing catches today. It would not shock me if he caught, 5 to 6 catches at the very least. So this guy's extremely talented. He's in a great spot. He's 3,700. I don't have any reason for you to fade him. The one thing I'll say is make sure you put him in your flex. If you're really behind, you can maybe switch to a guy like LeGarrette Blount for the afternoon games, but that's just a strategy point. Jalen Samuels is a terrific play this week. He's not a chalk I'd be looking to fade personally.
Guys, Sam Darnold is back. Not a sexy game on paper here against the Bills, but who's worth taking a shot on in this game? Maybe some contrarian plays here, Julian?
Oh.
I mean, where I would take a shot in this game, I guess, is on the other side at quarterback with Josh Allen, who's kind of becoming a popular value play. And he's a guy, thanks to the very humble Steve Buchanan, who generously donated his segment to me later in this show, we'll be talking about. But Josh Allen has a ridiculous, I think it's 22 carries for 234 yards in 2 games since he returned from injury. So if he's going to run around like that, he's the guy to consider in this game. Otherwise, yuck. Don't give me any Jets Bills.
Jeff, I heard you
he's excited.
make a yuck noise. Yeah.
I think this game is a complete fade. I think some people are getting sucked into the Josh Allen shock, like Julian. No shock there. But look, if you really want to go crazy and you need to get some exposure to the Jets, don't use Darnold. I think Elijah McGuire is probably an interesting play. I know Crowell's playing, but eventually he's going to get the bulk of the work for the Jets as the season comes to an end here. He's only 3,400, so he's semi-interesting. On the other side too, I think someone's going to talk about this later, but Isaiah McKenzie too, kind of an interesting dart throw, I guess. But again, this is a pretty easy fade for me, to be honest. I'm not touching this game.
Reed, you have any interest in this at all?
No, you have to love Jeff's conviction. And he's mentioned Elijah McGuire like the last 3 to 4 weeks, or as his waiver wire pickups, and I got to give it to him because Elijah McGuire, he's got the talent, and in this backfield, right, he should, like to Jeff's point, he should be getting more touches, he should be getting more production, but not really. If there's anyone, if you want to, for whatever godforsaken reason that you want to play this game, Jermaine Kearse, someone who got 0 targets last week, but the week previous saw 12, is someone that when Darnold is in, his targets go up the most out of anyone in that receiving core. Obviously, Quincy Nuno is still there, but he hasn't been producing. So, if anything, at 3,600, Jermaine Kearse, but don't do it. But if you wanted to, that'd be my one take.
Time for question, boys. Reed, what do you feel of a Rodgers, Adams, and Luck Hilton stack? Maybe he meant, how do you feel?
What do you feel, though?
Tell me how you're feeling.
I feel glad that I'm in the presence of Jeff Ulrich and Julian Edlow. I'm excited for that Jewel segment. But no, look, I really like the Luck Hilton. If you look at this, I like it on both sides of the ball. I really like the Watson Hopkins stack as well. I think it's going to be a shootout. Rodgers hasn't been great. The narrative is that he's going to chuck it around 60-plus times. Luck already did that in this game previous, so I like the Hilton spot.
Hey, Jeff, Zeke or Kamara?
Ooh, yeah, I mean, it's a hard choice between the top 4 or 5 running backs. I'm going to go with Kamara. I mean, he's basically, spoiler, he's my anchor today, but I just like the setup against the Bucs rush defense, so I'll take Kamara, and he's cheaper.
Jules, Aaron would like to know, Anthony Miller or Traquan Smith?
That's a really close one.
Oh.
I would say the matchup is better for Traquan Smith, but I think that game in Tampa is going to let a lot of people down on offense. So I'll take Anthony Miller in that night game going.
Really bad weather in Tampa right now. Well, really bad weather in Tampa right now.
Oh, no.
Our meteorologist.
Buchanan's not here to report the weather. So
That's right.
Thank you for stepping in, Jeff.
Yep, our favorite neighborhood meteorologist, Steve Buchanan, will be joining us in the next block.
Yeah,
real quick, though, Reed, were you on the Miller or Traquan Smith train there?
Can you repeat that name?
Yeah,
Who asked this question?
It was Aaron.
Got it. Yeah, I'm with Julian here. I think Miller is in a nice spot. I do like Trubisky as well. I mean, I think in this game, it could go either way, right? This Bears game could either be really slow or it could be a high shooter. So I like Miller in that spot. I don't like that game in Tampa Bay.
Oh, man. I don't know if Aaron's going to like that answer. All right, well done, my dudes. We're chasing and fading some game spreads right after this.
Pat Mayo here with an exciting new way to heat up your Sundays this football season. Draftkings has teamed up with Buffalo Wild Wings to bring you a fantasy experience like no other. Blazin' Fantasy Football, a new free game only available inside Buffalo Wild Wings restaurants. Want to win free wings for a year, game tickets, Buffalo Wild Wings gift cards, or Blazin' Rewards points? Here's how. Head to Buffalo Wild Wings, download the Blazin' Rewards app, and join. Already a member? Not a problem. Just log in and fire up the app. Click or tap the Blazin' Fantasy Football icon, join a contest, draft your lineup, and get ready to compete against rivals in all Buffalo Wild Wings restaurants. Blaze your way up the leaderboard by drafting who you think will be the top 8 players, including kickers. Best part? You've got a chance to really rack up the score with your blazing pick. It's worth double points, so choose wisely. Don't just wing it. Draft your team in one of Sunday's 4 contests before each half of the 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern games. Then, grab some wings, sit back, and watch your team light up the leaderboard. Come back every Sunday for new contests each week. Draftkings and Buffalo Wild Wings, the right stack for Sundays.
What up? Welcome back to The Sweat, where now our experts will take on the challenge of chasing or fading game spreads for today's main slate.
And those said experts just so happen to be Reed Fowler, Steve Buchanan, and the fantasy girl herself, Rosalie Michaels. Guys, the Giants are 3-point road favorites against the Redskins. Chase or fade that they'll still cover despite not having Odell Beckham Jr. Reed, what are you going to do here?
Yeah, the line only moved 0.5, and so that's what we really think about, or that's what the guys are making the line think about OBJ not being in. Only moves half a point. Look, this Washington defense, again, has been sliding on a downhill slide for the last month or so. They've had a ton of injuries. We've talked about it quite a bit in the show. Giants 6-5 against the spread, and so going on the road, I like the Giants to cover. That defense, again, is something that we're looking at as well, going against Sanchez. So I like the Giants here.
Rosalie, chase or fade?
Yeah, I'm actually fading this. The Giants are 19th in scoring with Odell, so I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to be able to score that much more points without him. You know, you take away that big play threat, and like we said, all you have is Saquon. Certainly is going to have a good game, right? But, you know, Washington is 3rd in takeaways, and the Giants give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing defenses over the past 4 weeks. So I believe we're going to see interception Eli today, which we haven't seen in a while, and I kind of miss him. The Giants' run D is terrible. AP went off on them in week 8, and the Giants gave up 182 rushing yards in that game. That's what I think is going to happen today. I think Washington wins by a touchdown in a very low-scoring game. And, yeah, I know Sanchez is in there, but he can manage the game well enough to where Washington ends up with the victory by maybe a touchdown. You know what? The Giants, Reed mentioned that they're 6-5 on against the spread. They're 5-1 away, so that does worry me a little bit. They're doing great covering the spread on away games, but I just don't think that they have the offense to actually cover it this time.
Steve, hot take city right there from Rosalie. Do you have any faith right here that New York can cover the spread without OBJ?
You know, real quickly, it's not going to be raining in Tampa when the game starts, so relax. Anyways, the Giants should have no problem covering here. I mean, I don't think this is going to be an issue. Like, yes, obviously it'd be nice to have Beckham in that contest, but if your offense is sputtering, what's the easy way to get that going other than draft a new quarterback? But get Saquon Barkley going, and this is a spot where he should absolutely rip this Washington defense to shreds. I mean, we just saw Jaquiz Rodgers back in Week 10 catch 8 of his 8 targets for 102 yards against his defense. Okay, really? Now we're going to worry about Barkley in this spot? This should be an easy cover for the Giants. I mean, look who they're running out in the quarterback over the Redskins. Come on. This should be easy for the Giants.
All right, Steven, chase or fade Lamar Jackson because we know Joe Flacco is inactive. So Lamar Jackson and the Ravens cover as 6.5-point underdogs in Kansas City.
No, I don't think they can do it here. I mean, I brought it up before. If Jackson isn't rushing the ball, he's just not generating enough offense through the air. He hasn't passed more than 178 yards in his 3 games as a starter. He's only thrown 1 touchdown in all 3 of those games. And then when he is passing, they're not very accurate either. He's only completing 60% of his pass attempts as a starter. Then we look on the other side of the ball and who they're facing, the Chiefs. I mean, come on. I know people are shying away from like Tyreek Hill and such because of how good this defense is. It doesn't matter what defense Tyreek Hill is facing. He can get out of there and get those games going. And then the Ravens are not good against tight ends, so obviously it sounds like a game for Travis Kelce. Baltimore just cannot sustain that type of offense, so I don't think they cover here.
Rosalie, what do you think? What makes you think maybe the underdogs can cover or maybe you don't?
Yeah, Steve's going to hate this, but I'm actually calling this, I'm chasing it. I'm calling this as the upset of the week.
Somebody send help. We need help.
I've been waiting for the week that the mighty Chiefs come crashing down to earth. This is going to be that week. Number 1 defense, number 1 offense. This is going to be a great game to watch. I'm very excited. Now, I wouldn't have called this as a win for the Ravens a few weeks ago. Steve doesn't believe in Lamar Jackson because he's not throwing the ball a whole heck of a lot. But you know what they're doing? They're scoring a lot of points in their game. Lamar Jackson has revitalized this offense. 3 games, the last 3 games, these 3 games under Lamar Jackson, 26 points, 34 points, 24 points versus a Chiefs D that just gave up 33 points to the Raiders last week. Raiders. If the Raiders can score 33 points, Baltimore under Lamar Jackson definitely going to score that many. So I think that they actually do cover. Sorry, Steve.
All right, Reed. Do you have as much faith in Baltimore as Rosalie does?
My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, Rosalie made all the points that I was going to make. I agree with her. I get it, Steve. Like, City is a team that can put up points. And Baltimore, we haven't seen the Lamar Jackson that we would potentially need to see. But look, Kansas City is 32nd in rush DVOA, and these guys run the most run plays, and they're running it effectively. Like, that's how you keep a high-powered offense like the Rodgers and the Mahomes and the Goffs on the sideline is you run the ball. You try to control the clock, and I think they do that. So I think they keep it close. I'm going to agree with Rosalie here, and I'm taking the Ravens. I'm chasing this.
All right, guys, chase or fade. The Dolphins cover as 8.5-point underdogs against the Patriots in Tom Brady's personal house of horrors that is Miami. Rosalie, chase or fade?
Yeah, this was a hard one for me. I'm actually going to chase this. You look at it and you think, how are the Dolphins going to cover against the Patriots? The Dolphins just aren't scoring a lot of points, and the Patriots are. But when you look at the history right now, Miami against the spread, 5-1 at home. 5-1 at home. And we know that for some reason, Tom Brady has a hard time when he's in Miami. Not sure what that's about. But I'm going to fade this simply because of history. I'm watching what Miami's doing at home against the spread, so I'm fading it.
Reed, Tom Brady's personal hell. Chase or fade?
Yeah, I can't wait for Steve's take on this. I can just see his expression. Look, I mean, isn't this the prime spot for the Patriots to just absolutely trounce the Dolphins, right? Everyone is bringing up Brady's history and the Patriots' history. like since 2013, these guys haven't, the Patriots haven't swept Dolphins except for, I think, 2016 season. So, like, look, I get the history that they don't do well. A lot of teams that travel to Miami don't do well, but it's the Patriots. So I'm going to fade this. I think the Patriots absolutely, do damage to the Dolphins.
Steve, do your thing.
I mean, Rosalie said they were 5-1 at home against the spread. It's about to be 5-2. I mean, I like this number a lot more when Xavier Howard was active, but him being out changes a big chunk, in my opinion, here. Brady's been relying upon Josh Gordon so much in this game, and now he's essentially wide open. I mean, at this point, you have to love this spot for Josh Gordon, and then you have to mix in the facts that the Dolphins are so poor against the run. I mean, if you want to have someone to manage the clock, Bill Belichick's your guy, and he can have Sony Michel, James White, Rex Burkhead drain the hell out of this clock to end this game, and the Dolphins are allowing an average of 117 rushing yards per game. You get the Patriots a little bit of a lead here, they will just run that clock down. I think the Patriots cover here. I don't think it's a question.
All right, guys, that'll do it for now. A lot of hot takes there, setting the sweatometer off, which we love. We're going to update you on some inactives, plus Pat Mayo joins us live after this. It's time for your Draftkings Fantasy Flash. I'm Taralyn Azak. The New York Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham has been downgraded to out due to a bruised quadricep for today's game at FedEx Field against the Washington Redskins. The team was soft-pedaling his injury situation, but it came out on Saturday morning that Beckham was not healthy enough to play and didn't even travel with the team. Beckham let his fans know on his most recent episode of his Facebook docuseries, I Am More OBJ, saying it occurred on the final play when he was leg whipped against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Giants entered today's matchup at 4-8 without their leading receiver for the first time this season. Options to fill the void and play bigger roles without OBJ in the lineup in Week 14, Benny Fowler, Russell Shepard, and Corey Coleman. Tight end Evan Engram is also expected to return after being out with a hamstring injury the past 2 games. If the Giants lose to Washington today, they are officially eliminated from playoff contention. Kickoff is set for 1 p.m.
Hello, back here inside the Draftkings studios, also known as the kitchen. Emerson and Jessie here with you, and how about you deliver some injury updates for everyone watching?
Don't mind if I do. Odell Beckham Jr. is out. T.Y. Hilton will play. Isaiah Crowell and Doug Martin are expected to play. Isaiah Crowell definitely in. Yep. Kiki Kuti still going to be a game-time decision, but trending towards not playing.
Yep. And don't forget Chief Star Eric Berry, safety, still not expected to play. He has practiced the last 2 weeks, though. And Sam Darnold will be in action, but our analysts, as I told you earlier, not too excited about that game.
Kiki Kuti and Eric Berry are both inactive.
Okay, cool. Now that that's official.
Good to know that.
How about a guy who's guaranteed lock every week? That's Pat Mayo. He's live in the PME studios. The floor is all yours, brother.
Welcome into the Pat Mayo Experience Studios. I'll let you know that if you do enjoy Sunday coverage, Pat Mayo Experience live at 10 a.m. every Sunday, right before this way. You can just go back to back, watch them both. Plus, I'll be live 10 a.m. Monday morning on the Draftkings YouTube channel, Periscope, and Facebook, and all those fun places, talking about the waiver wire and recapping the week. But we're here to talk bets right now, the spreads that have been moving so far this week. And the big one that we can start off with, actually, Gary and Thorn's here with me, too.
I am.
You're here.
Have not moved.
Didn't want to bury the lead on you.
I mean, it's fine,
really. Falcons down to 3.5 from 5.5 earlier this week.
Yeah.
I still like the Falcons. I think it's a 3-point game.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this on the show, and maybe it's just my biases towards Joe Philbin, but there was no way in the world I was ever going to lay 5.5 points. I saw it in 6 at some places. With the Packers, I know that Matt Ryan's numbers on the road this season haven't been as spectacular as his numbers at home, but a lot of that is weighted in, strangely enough, early season struggles. If you take out like the opening Thursday night of the season against the Eagles, really hasn't been that bad. So I'm with you. I think I'm leaning towards the Falcons here. Sort of a similar situation we saw to last week where I see big numbers in the Packers, and at this point I'm just so averse to trying to really exploit that because I haven't seen it from the Packers yet.
All right, so the big one that they were just talking about, this Ravens game, 6.5. It's going to be cold, apparently, in Kansas City. All week, actually, for like the past 2 weeks, I've been banging the horse for Baltimore money line.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that other people are following along with me on this one, too. I'm not just on an island by myself, but
this is a game where, and you kind of pointed out too, the spread doesn't really matter all that much. It's hard to see Kansas City winning by 3. Either they win by a bunch or the Ravens win. And I think that with Lamar Jackson and the inactive Joe Flacco, that you have to get up early, you have to have extended drives, you need to run the ball effectively. Like, this isn't going to be a game where if Lamar Jackson has to pass the ball more than 25 times in this game, they lose. It's game over.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, there's a bunch of DFS possibilities stemming from each possible narrative, but I think if you're someone who's wanting to bet the Ravens here, and if you're thinking about doing it with the spread, like you said, just take the money line, because the Chiefs are not a team, especially at home. Their average scoring margin at home this season is 16.2 points, which is easily the highest in all of football. So if you think that the Ravens are going to be close in this game, just bet them to win, because the likelihood of a Chiefs game finishing within a single score is not something we've seen happen a lot so far this year. So I think this is an interesting spot to really take advantage of that money line.
2 biggest game. Oh, the money is flooding in on the Packers now. Minus
heard our hot takes.
Yeah, hot takes. People here, we hail you. You like the Falcons? We'll bet the Packers in that situation. So the biggest one-sided money games of the week: Bills -4 over the Jets. I still like the Bills -4 over the Jets. And the other one is Chargers. 78% of the money coming in on the Chargers. Like I mentioned, a lot of that is teasers, a lot of that is money line parlays. But I think this game is a pure stay away.
Yeah, I would agree. It's
15.5 is a lot to cover. Now yes. 16, actually.
And especially, too, I mean, if you look at the way the Chargers utilize their offense, they're an exceedingly slow team, and they only get slower when they start leading games. I mean, we could be talking about a system here where the Chargers only run 55 plays. That's a large scoring margin to rack up in such a small amount of plays. And really, when you're cutting your play share down that heavily, that's when the weird variant stuff starts to come into play. So I'm with you. I think that there's a beyond zero chance that we see a script very similar to the one we saw against the Cardinals a couple weeks back, but I would prefer to just steer clear of that spot.
Yeah, I can't make a really compelling case that Cincinnati covers this number.
Yeah, I can't say they're good, but
weird stuff happens all the time. The plug your nose on the spread plays of the week: San Francisco, Miami, and Washington. No one is betting on those 3 teams. And it's just like, oh, and no one wants to. I don't want to. I picked all 3 teams.
Yeah. I would say of the 3, I'd be the most inclined to take the Redskins. I just think there's an obvious script. Unlike the other 2 situations, there's just a very easy set in stone path for victory for Washington, which is AP. Just give the ball to AP. The Giants haven't been able to stop a running back since they got rid of Snacks. Really just own the time of possession. Limit the amount of touches that Mark Sanchez ever has aside from just handing the ball to AP. In fact, if you would like to run Wildcat for most of this game, just so the ball goes directly into AP's hands, not necessarily inclined to say no to that possibility. But that would be the one of the 3 that I'd be the most inclined to kind of put some money on.
Other ones that I'm kind of keeping an eye on right now. I mentioned the Baltimore money line that I like. That's down to +230 from +240. So the spread hasn't changed, still 6.5. The money line has actually gone down. The 2 that I really like the most, it's still up in the air right now in terms of like where this over-under is going to finish at. However, I do really like the over in the Texans-Colts game. That's 49 right now, and I like the over in the Carolina-Cleveland game. If you parlay those 2 together, it's +265.
It's not bad.
It's not terrible.
I'm with you wholeheartedly on the Colts-Houston game. And we've been playing this game for, it feels like 10 weeks now. The Colts, exceedingly high-paced offense, generally speed up the opposing team. Not to say the Texans are slow anyway. They are also one of the highest paced teams in the NFL. Luck is going to be throwing this ball a ton. Averages 51.5 attempts in games. The Colts eventually lose. They're pretty heavily bet against underdogs in this contest. I think it's safe to say that's the script we're going to see here. I love the over in that game.
Do you like Indy here?
I don't dislike Indy.
The number is 4.
I'll be honest, I've focused so much on how much I like the over-under. I haven't really focused too much on the actual spread.
I still think I like the 4. I would prefer the over than betting either side of this game.
Yeah, that's really where I stand too.
Because if it's going to be one of these things where we're in a situation where we like the over.
That a lot of backdoor cover potential.
But it's backdoor cover potential. But even with the Texans, we like a lot of points in this game. They could win by 4 or more pretty easily.
Sure. Yeah.
You pray for not a lot of field goals in this matchup and just a lot of scoring.
Yeah.
Any other games that kind of tickle you?
No, I think those are the big ones.
Tampa Bay.
I'm out there right now for Josh Allen prop. over 40 rushing yards in
Over
this game.
40 rushing yards. 40 and a half, sorry.
It's 40 and a half. No, over.
Is
No.
this going to be the week that Josh Allen just lets us down?
I mean, it is Josh Allen shock week, which is not maybe the most confidence inspiring.
85% of the money on the Saints.
Ooh.
But 65% of spread picks on the Buccaneers. So that's all teaser money.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of
That's
teasers.
a lot of teaser money. Do you trust it? Because there's weather.
There's
There's weather in a lot of games, but apparently there's going to be wind and rain.
I mean, Saints outdoors. Bucks have played them tough a couple of years.
I still like the Saints.
Yeah, me too.
Just coming off the extended rest and coming off a loss, I like this.
I just think they're
and the
a really
fact they've
good
already
team.
lost to Tampa this year.
Yeah.
Like it's not an overlooked spot for them.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, at least.
Yeah, I like the Saints.
I like the Saints. So Baltimore for me, my big one, the two overs: Cleveland and Carolina, and Houston and who's the other one?
There
Indianapolis. That's
you go.
one. And I love Andrew Luck on DraftKings this
Me
week.
too.
Andrew Luck, Saints D, Saquon Barkley. Play those three guys, figure out the rest.
And then we'll all be millionaires.
Then we can all split the millionaire.
Hooray!
If you can fill in those pieces correctly. That's the problem that I have. It's not the concrete guys, it's the other people. Zay Jones is really going to ruin me this week. Zay Jones and LeGarrette Blount is going to cost me.
Yeah.
Wow, you're coming up a little bit later with your fades of the week.
Fades of the week.
All right, fades of the week. That's going to do it for me, Pat Mayo. You can follow me Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the PME. Updates always, and the rankings on DK Playbook are now all updated. Back to you guys in the studio.
Good stuff, guys. And speaking of good stuff, you guys at home have spoken. We have answered the call. Here's Papa John's Make Your Pick with Reed Fowler and Adam Levitan and some dude named Brendan.
Weird.
Hey everyone, I'm Brendan Glasheen along with DK Live's Adam Levitan and Reed Fowler. They're here to help you make your pick for DraftKings Team Pick'em. It's presented by Papa John's. You get 25% off any regular menu price orders by using the promo code DK25. All right, guys, we're targeting 3 games in Week 14 with interesting storylines. For the first time in 13 years, the Packers are going to play a game without Mike McCarthy serving as head coach. Green Bay's lost 3 in a row. Home this week against Atlanta. Levy, do Aaron Rodgers and company right the ship?
You know, Joe Philbin is no genius, but I think it's a massive upgrade to get rid of Mike McCarthy. I think he was clashing with Aaron Rodgers, and just the creativity level on the offense was absolutely inept, given what you have in terms of talent on that team with Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah, I think this will be a spark to the team. I think this is a huge upgrade, addition by subtraction, getting rid of McCarthy, and the Falcons are just so soft, especially when they go on the road.
Reed.
Yeah, you're probably going to see Aaron Rodgers be calling the plays here. You might see 40 to 50 pass attempts from Rodgers. And so I got a Green Bay in this one as well. Deion Jones obviously was a huge piece that they were missing. The guy had 15 total tackles and a sack last week. Pretty good in terms of shoring up the middle. So Aaron Jones might not be someone I'm as high on as I was last week. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers and company are going to take the Falcons here in this one.
All right, next up, the Broncos are in the thick of the AFC playoff race now with another win. 3 in a row last week, making it 3 in a row last week with the win over the Bengals. So Denver's at San Francisco this Sunday, Reed. How do the Broncos fare?
Yeah, I think they get their 4th game in this win streak that they've been on right now. I mean, look, their offensive line is playing a lot better. Obviously, they're running the ball a lot better, and defense has been strong all year. They got some key injuries, Harris going down. So you will see how that fares. But when you go up against the 49ers team that really is struggling to produce any points and to move the ball, yes, they looked decent against Seattle. But again, Denver is on this streak. I think they continue here with 4 straight.
Levy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the upset here. And I think when mediocre teams, and that is what I would consider the Broncos, come off 3 really big, tough wins, now back-to-back road games, now they go to the sleepy spot at San Francisco, it's a prime spot for a letdown, and NFL teams just don't always play up here for a really long period of time. It's often all over the place. And I think San Francisco still has some fight in them. I mean, yeah, going into Seattle was brutal, but coming home to face a mediocre Broncos team, I think is a spot where the 49ers can spring an upset.
Last one, Panthers continue to slide. Carolina's lost 4 games in a row. Do they figure it out this week at the Browns, Levy?
I don't think so. And I think we saw Cam Newton bothered by a shoulder issue. I think we see continued problems with the defense for the Carolina Panthers, and the Browns are just playing good ball. And I know they got killed by the Texans on Sunday, but I think coming home in front of the dog pound, they'll be pretty motivated to turn around there. Baker Mayfield continues to play at a really high level. So I think that the Browns at home here actually have little bit more talent than the Panthers, I would say, if we count both sides of the ball, and that should be enough to do it.
Reed, who do you got?
Yeah, it seems like we talk about the Panthers every single week here because they're a team that we think should be playing better than they actually are. And really, we talked about it. They haven't really beat anyone, and I think they go to Cleveland and they don't beat Cleveland as well. So I'm taking the Browns here as well. Look, Carolina is giving up 24 points over the last 3 games to opposing teams, and that's really their identity. That has been their identity. Obviously, running the ball and producing with Cam Newton, but that defense has been strong. That's not the case this year. Cleveland is, like Levy mentioned, Cleveland is playing better. Baker has that team playing better. Yes, they didn't take it in Houston, but I mean, this team is playing a lot better, especially more efficiently on both sides of the ball. So, yeah, I got the Browns here as well.
Okay, thanks, guys. That'll do it for this week's edition of Make Your Pick for DraftKings Team Pick'em. It's presented by Papa John's. For Adam and Reed, I'm Brendan. We'll talk to you next week.
Welcome back to the millions of people watching at
billions,
home. Billions
have the ability to watch.
Yeah, this is the
I don't
sweat.
think they're all watching that.
I'm not sure why they're not all watching.
Come on, guys. Wake up over there in
Wake
Australia.
up. Let's go. We're bringing in our experts now to talk anchors and DSTs. Those experts are Julian Edlow and Jeff Ulrich, both of DK Live fame.
All right, Jeff, let's get your anchor pick here, the player you are building your lineup around. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara here. I mean, it's just too good of a bounce-back opportunity, in my opinion, for Kamara, and the price is just right. I mean, I talked about the big 4 running backs. Kamara's the cheapest of them, and it all also comes down to matchup. I think a lot of people are going to look at, well, he let us down against Dallas last week, Jeff. Well, this isn't Dallas. This is the Tampa Bay defense. Last 3 games, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns to Saquon. 106 yards to Matt Breida, 106 yards and 55 yards passing to Christian McCaffrey. Big running backs been going off against the Tampa Bay run defense of late. Good. It's also projected to be a little bit sloppy conditions. I know Steve Buchanan doesn't like me to talk about the weather, but I'm going to talk about it. It favors a lot of short passes to Kamara. I think it's a really good bounce back spot, and I just think you got to take advantage of the price.
Jules, you're going with the highest priced tight end on the main slate?
I am. I think it's kind of an interesting week at tight end because we've been talking all season about how poor the position is, and now there's actually some good plays. Like Zach Ertz is a guy at 6,400 that had 43.5 DraftKings points the last time he faced the Cowboys, so he's going to garner some ownership. Rob Gronkowski, although he's not playing well, is $4,800. That's the cheapest he has ever been on DraftKings, so that's something people are going to pay attention to. And then you've got this perceived bad matchup for Travis Kelce against the Ravens defense, and he's the highest priced tight end. So maybe that can scare some people away when in reality, if there's one place that you can attack this Ravens defense by going to the tight ends where they rank just about average, but they shut down number 1 wide receivers, which will have people off Tyreek Hill. I just think this is the type of game that Mahomes is really going to have to find Kelce to move the ball. And then when you get into that game log with Kelce, the last 2 games, 31.7 DraftKings points, 42.8 DraftKings points. He's rolling. If he was a wide receiver and he had those last 2 games, I feel like he would be priced above $8,000, and yet you can fill the tight end position with him at $6,700. So that's where I'm anchoring my lineups this week.
All right, let's talk about which DST is the best play today. Jeff, who are you looking at for this?
I really like the Lions, and I mean, it really just comes down to opponent. You cannot ask for anything more than the Arizona Cardinals as an opponent for your DST. They're bottom 5 in terms of turnovers. Actually, they're 6th in the league in turnovers on offense. Second fewest rush yards per game. Last in terms of points scored. I mean, they're heading into this game without Christian Kirk, a banged-up O-line. And people might be saying, oh, Detroit's not that great on defense, but they got Darius Slay back. Zeke Ansah is back. He's healthy. And they're actually 10th in sacks. This isn't that bad a defensive unit. Yes, they've gotten hammered a couple times by some good teams, but Arizona is not a good team. The Lions kept it within 3 against the Rams last week. They got the Rams to turn it over a couple times. They played really well. Now they get like the weakest opponent on the slate. I think it's a great spot to deploy the Lions, especially in big GPPs.
Julian, which DST do you think is the best play today?
Yeah, so Jeff said that there's nothing more you can ask for than facing the Arizona Cardinals. I think there's one more thing you could ask for, and that would be facing Mark Sanchez. So I am not overthinking things this week. Give me the New York Giants defense at $2,500. I don't really mind that they're on the road in Washington. Look, Mark Sanchez became the Washington starting quarterback on Monday night. So slates for this price came out on Sunday night. So the Giants at $2,500 are priced for Colt McCoy, who's been a backup there for years and knows that system really well. Now you have Mark Sanchez coming off the streets in the last few weeks. doesn't know that much of the playbook, and plays a Giants defense that's been playing well lately. They have, in 2 of their last 3 games, they have 17 DK points, 11 DK points. So I think this is a spot that it'll be really chalky, but I don't mind eating the chalk on defense, especially in cash games this week.
All right, guys.
Chalky Giants. What could go wrong there, right?
What could go wrong? New York Football Giants, baby.
Absolutely nothing.
We'll find out. Let's take some of these questions that are pouring in on the interwebs. Jeff, Ingram or Sony Michel?
Oh, I'd go Sony Michel over Mark Ingram. Yeah, I like Sony Michel. It's a good spot for him.
Jules, do you have the wide receiver prices punched up? If so, Alexander says there's so much value at wide receiver below 5K this week. Who do you like the best?
Below 5K,
Yeah.
The Tampa guys will be popular. Chris Godwin and Adam Humphries are both 4,900. I prefer Humphries there. He's a little bit safer play in the slot. And the 44, 4,500 price range, you have the Cortland Sutton versus Sterling Shepard decision. I think both of those guys are going to be chalky plays. I lean Cortland Sutton there.
Cool.
Yeah, just play Cortland Sutton, Alex, Ander.
Jeff, please help. Kirk Cousins or Josh Allen?
Ugh. I guess actually, it's not a bad spot for Kirk Cousins. It really isn't. The Seattle secondary is not good. It's a must-win. So I actually kind of do like Kirk Cousins this week. It's a good spot for him. Definitely would play him over Josh Allen.
All right, boys. Thanks for your assistance. We appreciate it. Top stacks coming up after this.
What's going on? I'm Tara Lenazak, and with your Draftkings Fantasy Flash. The Jets will start rookie quarterback Sam Darnold this afternoon against the Buffalo Bills, according to multiple sources. Darnold's 3-game absence from the lineup began in Week 10 with a sprained foot, as the Jets had one of their worst defeats in franchise history, a 41-10 loss to the Bills. During Darnold's hibernation, the 3-9 Jets have lost 6 straight. Before the rookie QB's injury, which forced him to the sideline, he threw 4 interceptions against the Dolphins. Darnold is priced at $4,400 this week, but something that could impact his performance? The weather. It is going to be freezing at New Era Field, and he grew up in SoCal, so he hasn't really played in cold weather games. With his roller coaster of a season behind him, now Darnold is looking to make these final 4 games a success. It will be a game to watch as Darnold and the Jets and Josh Allen and the Bills go head-to-head. Kickoff is set for 1.
All right, this is that time of the show where we usually make like a pancake joke.
For the last time, Emerson, we're not talking about pancakes.
I did have pancakes yesterday, though. They were phenomenal.
Actually, so did
but great segue here to stacks. We're going to talk about top stacks, contrarian stacks today, and the 2 experts we have here for it, Reed Fowler and the fantasy girl, Rosalie Michaels.
Guys, let's get those top stacks first. So which teams are you stacking on the main slate? We need that main pick first. Reed, take it away.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a protein pancakes for Emerson because he just shreds protein.
Shredding.
Who cares?
There
Who
was.
cares? I've already beat the emoji. Look, it's going to be Watson and Hopkins for me. It's 27% of your salary, so it's going to be expensive. And a lot of people are probably going this Luck side, Luck Hilton, which is a really nice stack. The over and under is around 49.50, so I do like this as a potential shootout. We've talked about Luck throwing it 60+ times. Last time these teams have met. And if you look at Hopkins, 32% target share. This is going to be a shootout. He's getting double-digit targets on average across the season. He's averaging just under 20 DK fantasy points. I love him in this matchup, so that'd be my top stack.
Rosalie, who are you looking at for your top stack?
Blueberry.
Oh, yes.
So
wow.
good.
I'm on board with that. Yeah.
Blueberry. But I'm going to go Big Ben and Juju here. You know what? The Raiders give up the 2nd most points per game in the league, 8th most fantasy points to QBs on the year. And the Steelers, we know they love to throw the ball a lot. I mean, and you look at Juju's targets over the last 3 games, 9, 17, and 10 in the last 3 games. And he's really one of the only receivers that Ben didn't criticize. So he's got that going for him. And then, and he even said that he likes to target Juju on the goal line, which equates to a lot of touchdowns. Juju's going to be covered up in the slot where he spends most of his time by Nick Nelson, who is targeted on 26% of his coverage and lets up almost a half a fantasy point per route. So I think that means a big day for Juju and a big day for Ben.
Reed, do you have a contrarian stack? I'm being told it looks awfully similar to Rosalie's top stack.
Yeah, exactly. It's a perfect segue there, Emerson. Professional. Like
Thank
it.
you.
Look, I think a lot of people, like Rosalie was saying, are going to be on Juju AB. I think this game is going to be attacked quite a bit. So Vance McDonald with Big Ben, I think, is a nice contrarian stack. I think, to Julian's point, you look at Travis Kelce, you look at these guys. Even Evan Ingram is getting a lot of talk, especially with OBJ out. But look at Oakland. We talk about how bad they are in defense. They're the worst, or one of the worst, against tight ends. Travis Kelce obviously had a huge game, a couple of touchdowns, close to 200 yards. Like Kittle, 4 for 108 and touchdown. The Colts tight ends, 41 DK fantasy points. And so again, when you look at Oakland's defense on a whole, you think like Rosalie was saying, Pittsburgh passes about 68% of the time. And so yes, Jalen Samuels should get more work out of that backfield, but these guys are going to pass the ball. They're going to pass it quite a bit. So Vance McDonald, his ownership has gone up a little bit over the week, but it's still in that single-digit mark. So I do like it as a contrarian stack if you want to save and go elsewhere.
Fantasy girl, let's think outside the box here. Hook us up with a contrarian stack.
I'm outside the box because I'm talking about some Browns, my friends. I'm going Mayfield and Callaway. So for under 10 grand, you're going to get a really good stack here. Carolina's pass D is terrible. Their run D is pretty good. So I don't think we're going to be seeing as much of Chubb as most people think. So I like the Mayfield Callaway here. They're letting up the second most fantasy points to QBs over the past 4 weeks and 6th on the year. And they are letting up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers for the past 4 weeks as well. They also let up the second most fantasy points to the perimeter the past 4 weeks, and that's where Callaway spends 90% of his time. A lot of people are going to be on Landry but he's in the slot there, and that's a little bit better coverage. He's on Callaway. Most people are going to target Landry, and so Callaway's that big, speedy, big play guy. 4 out of the past 5 starting quarterbacks to face the Panthers have scored at least 22 fantasy points. And during that 5-week span, no defense has allowed more passing touchdowns at 14, and only 2 have allowed a greater passer rating. So I like this. And even against a tough Texans defense last week, Cleveland still put up 400 passing yards. So I think this is going to be a big game for Mayfield and a big game for Callaway.
All right, guys, let's get to some of these questions that we have. Reed, non-PPR, Jalen Samuels, Justin Jackson, or Austin Eckler?
Ooh, I think Justin Jackson would probably be the one. Again, like we just talked about, right? Jalen Samuels should get the bulk of those carries. We just don't know how much. And so those are all tough, but Jackson to get the most of those touches in non-PPR.
Rosalie, what do you guys think about Justin Jackson with the Chargers? What do you think? I want to hear what you think, because I know Reed just talked about it. But
Reed did just talk about. You know what? I'm not on these because I think it's going to be a pretty even split between Eckler and Justin Jackson. We don't know how that's going to shake out. I feel a little bit more confident about Jalen Samuels because, you know what? Everybody's worried about Stephen Ridley. Ridley's not going to cut in. How many times do we actually see the Steelers do a RBBC? Really never. They just don't do it. They like to have one guy be their workhorse back. But I do think that we're going to see more of a split between Justin Jackson and Austin Eckler. And we're going to see more of Eckler in the passing game too. So especially PPR, I like Eckler better. But I just don't trust Justin Jackson. Even with that good matchup, I think you got a better opportunity with Samuels against Oakland.
All right, well, Aiden Stretchatarian says, hey, friends, me again. Can you ask your most handsome analyst what they think of the one Zay Jones today? Thank you wholeheartedly. Now, I know Jeff Ulrich is not part of this segment, so we'll go to our second handsomest host. That would be Reed. So what do you think of Zay Jones?
Don't play Zay Jones.
Okay, very
that's
simple
all.
and easy.
Wait a minute, I'm handsome too.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, if we
You're
were
handsome
going,
in a beautiful way.
Yeah, if we were going best looking, we already would have gone to you, Rosalie. But we had to give Reed a chance there. Yeah, he gets so few of those.
I feel really
chances.
bad about him sometimes the way he looks.
Yeah. All right, guys, incredible work as usual. We got a segment coming up. You would think it would be put up your bukes, right?
No, I don't. Well, yeah, that's
but
that
it's
time of the
not.
show. Oh,
it's Hidden Jewels on the way.
Pat Mayo here with Sunday's Blazing Game Day picks presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. Starting at running back, where we could roll out Christian McCaffrey again this week, and there'd be no harm in that. But let's go after another volume monster with Saquon Barkley against Washington. Well, Saquon doesn't always possess the same reception floor as McCaffrey. He has touched the ball at least 20 times in every game since Week 5, and against the Redskins' rush D, which has plummeted to 24th on the season. With the Giants as favorites, even on the road, we can be firmly in the realm of 25-plus touches and all the goal line work. At wideout, turn to Devontae Adams. Even in his worst matchup of the year against Patrick Peterson last week, Adams was able to escape him pre-snap enough time to do serious damage. There's no extra effort that has to go into eluding anyone against Atlanta. Touchdowns are where big weeks are born, and Adams has found pay dirt 11 times in 12 games, only being held on the end zone 3 games this season. Plus, he got a pissed off Aaron Rodgers tossing him the ball, and he's itching to run up the score. Finally, at QB, the aforementioned Rodgers is a pretty solid option too. But this is the week to go back to Andrew Luck. After straining together 8 consecutive games with at least 3 touchdown passes, Luck was stymied in Jacksonville, getting held out of the end zone and falling flat on his face. He gets back on the horse this week. From a volume perspective, Luck's always better as an underdog, which he is this week. And Houston's second-ranked run defense should have him taking to the air even in game script neutral situations. Fire up some Andrew Luck. Don't be afraid. Those were your Blazing Game Day picks presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. I'm Pat Mayo.
Welcome back to the sweat. Definitely don't sweat these guys because they're inactive today. Going to give you a quick update on that.
Roll through it, girlfriend.
OBJ ruled out with that bruised quadricep. Then we have Joe Flacco out. Sammy Watkins also out. Eric Berry, Charkandrick West, and Kelvin Benjamin are out. Kiki Kuti inactive. Denzel Ward inactive. Deshaun Jackson also inactive.
All right, we've got 2 guys here, Steve Buchanan and Julian Edlow. Now, everyone at home, this is typically when we do the segment, put up your bukes, but let's just remind you really quick why we are not doing that.
All right, I need to make a proposal real quick.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Next week, I don't want to do put up your bukes. I don't want to do it next week. I want to do hidden jewels. I want to hear Mr. Smart Guy, all his hidden plays, the non-chalk plays. Next week, hidden jewels. I don't want to do put up your bukes. Let's see what this tough guy has next week.
All right, so Steve Buchanan gets his wish.
Yeah.
And interesting note, if we can just pull up the still that we caught during that segment. I believe, one of your bukes was Matt Lacoste of the Broncos, and he had how many points? 0.
0.
0 points.
That's the problem with getting this all on tape. So
we can always rewind the tape and go back to it.
So now Julian is getting his chance for
your
hidden
time
jewels.
to shine.
It's your time. Oh! And
my God, he has an opening?
He has an opening.
Pull that out of the archive. They must have had about 3 inches of dust on it.
Yeah. So
I believe it's about 2 months old.
For the people at home who might not know how this works, hidden jewels is Julian going to make 3 value picks on the day. So Julian, without further ado, you've earned this one, buddy. Give us those value picks.
Well, for starters, I don't think Steve knows the rules of put up your bukes. He feeds me these chalk plays and then says, well, let's see why Julian doesn't like this guy. You're supposed to pick guys that I will fight with you on. So I'm going to try and do that and play by the rules of my segment and present you with some hidden jewels. So that's how it works here.
I'm going to read a book.
That said, my first guy starts off with apparently a little bit of chalk because everybody keeps saying it's Josh Allen chalk week. But here's my thing with Josh Allen. Are people actually going to get around to playing him? When you look at the quarterback options, I think Drew Brees is going to be over-owned. Aaron Rodgers is one of the more popular plays on the slate. Jameis Winston. So everybody's going to – and there's the room with all these running backs to pay down for. So is anybody really going to play Josh Allen? I don't think he's going to be all that popular as people think. He's got 4 touchdowns in his last 2 games, and the thing that we've all been talking about is the 234 rushing yards on 22 attempts in his last 2 games. So at 5,500, I do think he's going to go overlooked on this slate, and I think his rushing yards are going to give him an extremely safe floor. So I guess the sense of the word, the hidden jewel here will be that Josh Allen's ownership will be a lot lower than people expect.
Hey, Steve, what do you think?
All right, well, let's talk about this hidden jewel here, okay? On the DK Live app, which Julian is an integral part of, we have this thing from Fanshare Sports. It talks about the most discussed players of the week. Guess who they ranked the number one quarterback discussed was?
Who?
Josh Allen.
Oh.
Josh Allen. Oh, yeah, his ownership is not going to be there? That's who you're saying Fanshare Sports is a liar. That is not true at all. Look, okay, so let's talk about Josh Allen, okay? He's averaging 30 DK fantasy points over the last 2 starts. He's essentially Lamar Jackson 2.0. If he's not rushing, there's just no offense to be had here. He's completed 26 of his last 52 pass attempts. I mean, I get it. You want to save some money? You want to talk about Josh Allen? Josh Allen Chalk Week. Yeah, that's something I really want to be a part of. What an awful way to start the segment. Can we just put up your bukes? Can we just start over? Maybe just start the segment over? Let's hear your other
So are you playing him or are you not? Or do you like him or do you not? I don't even get it.
I'm not playing him. No. I can tell you're playing on.
So nobody's playing him. Everybody says it's Josh Allen Chalk Week, but nobody's playing him.
I'm not playing him. I'm sensible. Everybody else can play him. That's fine. Your internet is really bad.
Neither is
not winning more.
Jeff. Who else brought it up? People aren't playing Josh Allen.
Okay, so we know
Josh Allen.
we know that Steve definitely isn't
What
playing
chapter
Josh
are you
Allen.
on, Steve?
Oh, it's like an encyclopedia. It's a good book.
Okay, Julian, we have your first hidden jewel. How about your second?
All right, second here. I've already professed my love for Travis Kelce on this slate. That's who I think you should play on tight end, and that's one of the reasons that paying down at tight end this week could be contrarian. And we've got Ian Thomas plugging in for Greg Olsen with the Carolina Panthers. Thomas, not a very well-known guy, $2,700. He's a big athletic tight end. He caught all 5 of his targets after Olsen exited the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Week 13 for 46 yards. Cam Newton has that shoulder issue going on. He hasn't been slinging it downfield as much to the likes of DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Devin Funches. He's been keeping it short to Christian McCaffrey and the tight end position as he did 5 times last week. So Cleveland ranks, 28th in terms of DraftKings points allowed to the tight end position. This is going to be a cheap contrarian play on this slate that can get you 10 to 12 DraftKings points.
Okay, Steve.
Oh,
But let's hear why Steve doesn't like this one.
Okay, so Greg Olsen goes down. Now we have this dirt cheap tight end that we can use in his place. You know why he's a hidden jewel this week? Because nobody wants to play him because we've already been in this position before. He hasn't done anything all season long. Even when Olsen was out earlier this season, he caught 8 of his 14 targets for 68 yards. Now you would say, Steve, that's a pretty good game. Why the hate? Because that was over 3 games that happened, okay? This isn't 1 game. That was 3 games that went on. Now Newton's also dealing with a shoulder injury. Forget. You know what? I'll play Matt Lacoste again this week. A little bit higher price. How about that? I'm going to go back in the plus. There we go.
Okay.
You won't do it.
Not on board with Ian Thomas.
Eat another goose egg.
Okay.
Back my book.
All right, Julian, your third and final jewel, please.
This is a good
All right. Well, you certainly cannot argue in any way that this is not a hidden jewel because we're going with Barber at $3,600. Look, this slate has ridiculous running back value in this price point. You've got Jalen Samuels at $3,700. He's going to be the most popular. You've got Jeff Wilson in that featured role for the San Francisco 49ers going up against Denver at home, only a 3-point spread in that game. And then you've got Justin Jackson, who's going to be really popular too at $3,800 going up in a great matchup against the Bengals. All those guys are going to be played. You definitely should not play Peyton Barber, except for the fact that he will be ridiculously contrarian, and he's been getting a ton of touches lately. So if you want your extreme GPP leverage play, this is the guy that you are going to get it on. His touches last week, 16 carries. The week before that, 18 carries, 2 catches. The week before that, 18 carries, 2 catches. So he's been getting 16 to 20 touches a game. If this Saints, everybody's down on this Saints-Bucks game, but if it lives up to the hype offensively and the weather is a little tough and leads to running the ball more, Peyton Barber could do something with those 20 touches that he's going to reach value with. He had 22 DraftKings points and 14.3 DraftKings points in the last 2 games that he got those 20 touches. He's definitely a guy at $3,600 that can get you 20 DraftKings points on this slate, and if those other chalk plays wind up busting, you're going to be looking really good with Peyton Barber.
Steve, Peyton Barber, what do you think?
I think his
Holy
face
crap.
says it all.
Like, that was like 3 minutes too long. When I saw Peyton Barber was on this list, I honestly thought that this was for Garian's segment, like the fades. But no, this is actually for Julian's. Oh, okay. All right, got it. So we're going to talk about Peyton Barber. Okay. Why? The Saints have been one of the best defenses in the league. The Cowboys just got the most rushing yards against them last week. And how many did they have? 77. Okay, so all right. Maybe Barber can catch out of the backfield. He averages 1.7 targets a game. So maybe that one catch will get you, 12 DK fantasy points. Maybe he'll go the full length of the field. Why are you going to play Barber? Okay, so Put Up Your Bukes is back next week, ladies and gentlemen. No need to worry. This segment was an absolute bomb, and now we can go to a better one. Gary, and he's pretty good. Julian,
you realize the segment is called Hidden Jewels. I'm playing by the rules. Put up your bukes. Give me players that I will fight you on.
Okay, so we're going to tell people.
But let's see why Julian doesn't like this one.
Wow. We're going to tell people to play Peyton Barber this week.
I'm playing Jalen Samuels. But if you want GPP leverage, you should play Peyton Barber. I'll play Peyton Barber into GPP.
Okay,
all right,
there you go.
Jules, not a good look for you here, bud. We're going to go ahead and just
go back to my book.
We're going to wrap this segment up here. Steve did mention, Garian's pretty good. He's going to join us next with his 3 biggest fades of the day right after Sunday Millionaire Picks.
Welcome to $1 Million Picks, presented by Roman. ED meds prescribed online, delivered to your door at GetRoman.com. I'm Brendan Glasheen, and we're here to make you money. The goal, identifying players with the most upside for Sunday's main slate. So let's check in with our $1 Million panel, Reed Fowler and Adam Levitan. Reed, who do you think can have $1 million impact this weekend? Give me a couple of targets.
Yeah, my first guy is Keenan Allen going against Cincinnati at $7,400. Like, this guy really did well. I guess Pittsburgh didn't want to defend him, right? Or they wanted to put a linebacker in this guy. Since that Week 8 bye, he's seen 11 targets, 8 receptions, close to 100 yards, and 4 touchdowns in the last four or 5 games. One coming in the last 4, one each coming in the last 4. He clearly is that number 1 guy. Cincinnati, not good on defense.
I'm going to go a little bit further off the board here. I'm going to start with Austin Eckler, and I know people are scared about Justin Jackson. People saw on that game, national televised game, Justin Jackson played so well. I still think Austin Eckler is the man here for at least 60% of the carries, but more importantly, for a big share of the targets, and that's going to be really important against this Bengals defense, which is allowing the most yards per game in the entire NFL. Then I'm also going to go with Devontae Adams. I mean, with Mike McCarthy gone, expect Aaron Rodgers to be the one calling the shots here. And when Aaron Rodgers calls the shots, he calls a lot of passes. He calls a lot of passes to Devontae Adams. Saw Patrick Peterson last week. Won't see him this week. So I like Devontae Adams.
All right. Thanks to our $1 Million panel. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you next week on $1 Million Picks, presented by Roman. ED meds prescribed online, delivered to your door at GetRoman.com.
Welcome back to The Sweat. I'm Jessie. He's Emerson. We are not sweating, though, because we have some experts here with us. Gary and Thorn, Jeff Ulrich, and Steve Buchanan. And they're here for Thorn in my side. Gary, I'm going to pick his top 3 fades. Steve and Jeff going to weigh in.
Yep, go ahead, G. What's your first Thorn, or who is your first Thorn, rather?
Well, first, I just want to give a quick little intro to the segment. I mean, it's hard to follow up the mastery that is Hidden Jewels, but I will say this segment, the DK Live analyst Steve Buchanan has called pretty good. So buckle in. This is going to be great.
Let's go,
let's
baby.
Talk about Spencer Ware for a second. Spencer Ware, I think everyone's sort of overreacting to how poor his week was in what was a very heavy chalk Spencer Ware week in Week 13. But it's obviously a bad matchup against the Ravens. This is a team that is only allowing 4 yards per passing attempt to the running back position so far this season. It's the lowest rate in all of football. But I think the one thing that I kind of want to overcorrect from where I stood last week is just Patrick Mahomes is kind of the antithesis of CJ Beathard for a lot of reasons, obviously, but this is a guy who just does not want to check down. The Chiefs, regardless of who their running back is, have not been utilizing those running backs in the passing game so far this season. You go back across the last 5 weeks, only 8% of their team volume passing shares have gone to the running back position. That is by far the lowest rate in the NFL over that span. Tough matchup, not involved in the passing game. Essentially, Spencer Ware is a more expensive version of LeGarrette Blount this weekend. So I'd rather just save $1,300 and play LeGarrette Blount. So I will not have any Spencer Ware exposure this week.
How much exposure to Spencer Ware will you have, Steve?
Yeah, 0. I don't see how you can go back to the well this week. I mean, the $1,200 bump in salary from last week is enough for me to get off of him. And there's just too much value this week. I mean, Wilson over with the 49ers, I think, is in a great spot. He's much cheaper than Ware here. And Ware's facing one of the best run defenses in the league, like Gary was alluding to. It's not like he really blew us away when he was facing the Raiders last week. If there was a week that we were going to see something out of Ware, I figured we'd see a little bit more last week. So just with the salary bump and then some of the value, there's too many guys I want to pay up for this week. So Ware just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Jeff, you looked a little shocked there when Steve said he was going to have zero exposure to Ware.
Hey, Steve might have called this segment pretty good. We're off to a pretty bad start here.
Look,
a Chiefs running back has scored a touchdown in every single game they have played this year. The Chiefs have an implied team total of 28. Comparing him to LeGarrette Blount, this isn't the Lions offense. This is the Chiefs. They get in the red zone and they actually score touchdowns, and the running back benefits. Spencer Ware is still about 2K, maybe 3K off the highs of Kareem Hunt. And maybe he's not Kareem Hunt, but he's pretty damn close. He's a former starting running back. I still think this is too cheap. I'm not scared of the Ravens run D. They gave up over 110 yards rushing to other teams, Pittsburgh, New Orleans. Kansas City is an elite team just like that. Like I said, look at the numbers. They're going to score. They're projected to score 4 touchdowns. Good chance Spencer Ware gets one. I think he's still too cheap.
All right, Garion, who else you fading? Let's see if Jeff agrees.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. That's the spirit of the segment.
Absolutely.
Really nice to hear. Joe Mixon. It's a guy coming off his lowest snap count in a game, just 57.4% of all season when he's able to play the full game. I should state in week 2, he actually had a lower snap count, but we'll all remember that was the game against the aforementioned Baltimore Ravens where he got hurt and then had to sit out for 2.5 weeks. So that really doesn't count. So we're already coming in at a reduced volume share for Joe Mixon. And even though you would think with no other offensive players alive on that offense, they would maybe give the ball to their only remaining skilled player, that really hasn't been the case. When they've lost games so far this season, the Bengals have only given Mixon 15.7 touches on average in comparison to 23.4 touches in their wins. I'm not saying they're definitely going to lose this week. I am saying they're 15.5-point underdogs. So I will not be having any Joe Mixon exposure this afternoon.
Jeff, are you on the fade Joe Mixon train?
Look, I can't make as strong an argument for Joe Mixon for obvious reasons. They're 14-point underdogs, right? I do feel like this line is a little bit inflated, and the Chargers aren't quite as good as being 14-point home favorites. I think Jeff Driscoll's a decent QB. He's got a pretty good first name, too. Joe Mixon is a good quarterback. I mean, the Chargers have given up 6 touchdowns to the running back position over the last 3 games. This isn't a good rush defense. If the Bengals get off to a good start, you could see Joe Mixon really get on track. I'm looking at this 6K range. Phillip Lindsay's still in a 3-man rotation. Austin Eckler's now got Justin Jackson. David Johnson, I'm not even going to go there. I don't mind him in this range. It's not really a range I'm targeting, but there's a path here for Joe Mixon. Again, I'm not as strong convicted as I was on Spencer Ware, but there's still a path.
Well, come on, Jeff. Let's be real. Jeff with a J is not nearly as cool as Jeff.
Oh,
with
no,
a J.
not as cool.
That's pretty weak.
You're so fancy, you Canadians. Steve, what about you? What are your thoughts on Joe Mixon?
Yeah, it's hard to get excited about a running back that is such an extreme underdog, no matter what the team is or what the defense is that they're going up against. I mean, I guess really the only chance here from Mixon is, if he catches more out of the backfield than he usually averages. He gets about 4.5 targets a game, but that's not something I'm looking for a guy that's 6,400. For me, running back is so extreme this week. You're either going to go in the really high tier or you're going to go in the really low tier. There's really not a lot of that in between that really entices you to pay there. So it's either you're going to go high at running back or you're going to go cheap and then go with the rest of your wide receivers. So Mixon falls right in line with those mid-tier guys. It's really hard to get excited about. And again, if they pepper him with targets, then yeah, he actually has a legitimate chance of reaching some value here. But on the ground, it's just not where he's going to get his points here. So that's an easy fade for me.
I think the upside is there with Mixon because, like I said, it's a bad run defense. But look, the floor is terrible for sure. So.
Gary, and drop your third thorn on us, please.
Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people are going to be taking a walk down Narrative Street in Week 14, and it is freaking cold on Narrative Street, and I don't want any part of it. I really don't. I mean, the Falcons, yes, from a season-long perspective, have been horrible against quarterbacks, giving up a ton of fantasy points on a per-week basis to the position. But you look across the last 4 weeks specifically, only 180 passing yards per game they've surrendered. And, I think, too, just in the tier of his price point, would I rather pay $100 less for Andrew Luck, who is in a spot where I truly believe he's going to throw the ball 50 times against the Houston Texans in a game I think is going to be higher scoring? Yeah, 100 times out of 100, I'm playing Andrew Luck over Aaron Rodgers today. And I will say as well, ace in the hole here, everyone is so excited that Aaron Rodgers has been freed from the shackles of Mike McCarthy. How quickly we forget Joe Philbin was the worst coach in the NFL when he was a head coach in Miami. This is not a confidence-inspiring man. I want no part of Aaron Rodgers today, especially considering if your main argument is he got a coaching upgrade, because I don't really think that's the case.
All right, Jeff, I'm going to you first because all week long you've been banging away on Aaron Rodgers and how he's going to be the pissed off Aaron Rodgers today and just go off. So go ahead.
It's angry Aaron Rodgers week. I just got to embrace it. Look, Joe Philbin's not the head coach there. It's Aaron Rodgers is the head coach right now. all Joe Philbin's going to do is go, okay, just do whatever you want, Aaron, because I'm trying to get a position for next year, so put up as many points as you can. It's the perfect opponent. I mean, the Falcons suck. I mean, the one worry I have here is they're not going to be able to put up any points, and eventually it'll just be Aaron Jones taking handoff. Look, the cold temperatures, it doesn't really scare me that much. I mean, Lambeau Field, they have warmers in the field. It's always a couple degrees warmer there. So Aaron Rodgers has performed in cold weather. Davante Adams has been going off against everyone. I was going to get to see some Robert Elford possibly this week. There's just so many factors in play here to me that point towards a big game. I'm not sure why people are scared here. It's the GOAT. It's Aaron Rodgers. I think you just roster him this week.
All right, Steve. Jeff just mentioned, I mean, they have warmers down there on the field. So that's got to make you want to chase Aaron Rodgers, right?
That was actually the first point on my notes. Look, I think this is the first time all week I've heard about fading Rodgers. So I was shocked when I saw this one here. I mean, the Falcons have been one of the most generous defenses to opposing quarterbacks. I mean, just a matchup with Davante Adams alone, like Jeff was alluding to, is enough to get me to pair him with Rodgers for this week. I get the price point is a little weird. He's sandwiched right in between Andrew Luck and Jameis Winston. So of the three, he probably looks the less appealing. But if we're just going to go on recency bias here, this is the spot where Rodgers would bounce back here. And Jeff is right. The head coach is Aaron Rodgers in this game here. It's not anybody else but Rodgers. Philbin's not going to touch this one. He knows what happened in Miami. He doesn't want another repeat here. So he's going to try to look as good as possible to get something for next year. But yeah, fading Rodgers here is a really, really tough spot.
Look, I know it's cold, but people are acting like it's Game of Thrones here. Like the Night King is going to be out there throwing like ice spikes or something.
Believe me, no one cares less about weather than me. So you don't have to convince me.
Yeah, that's why he loves the warmers, because it's anti-weather. It's Steve's favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, guys, I think we can all agree winter is coming. We love Thorn in my side. I expect the Doug the Pug poster to be behind your head every single time we do this segment. So thanks, guys. Pretty incredible stuff. Now, let's go to Brendan Glasheen, who caught up with Mike Francesa, talking about today's slate.
Giants are 0-4 in the division, Mike. They're at the Redskins today.
Listen, they're playing a beat-up team. The Giants are better than their record. They needed to fix this offensive line. When the offensive line plays well, they can beat somebody. They just lost Collins, so now they're down their best couple of players on defense. Snacks is gone. Eli Apple, who was okay, is gone. But the Redskins are completely dismantled. So, listen, the Giants should have beat the Eagles 2 weeks ago. They didn't. That would have kept things interesting. Now they're just trying to see if they can spoil some seasons and get to 7-9 or 8-8 and just finish the season strong, which will create another problem because then Eli's on the contract next year, and they now have to figure what they're going to do with Eli. Do they send him out in the Dallas game, the last game of the season this year, and make a statement that that's going to be his last game as a Giant? Or do they linger with this all the way to March? I think they'll probably take it all the way to March, remember, because he's under contract. Then they'll have to make their move. I think they're going to get another quarterback next year. I think they're going to release Eli. I don't know that. That's just my gut.
Jets are at the Bills, who embarrassed New York a few weeks back at home. Are you confident that the Jets can avoid the same fate today?
I think the Jets don't like the Bills. I think they'll play hard. They have to play Donald. It's imperative they do. They have really messed this up by not putting him back in. I think they're trying to manage the season now and only play him against certain teams. I think that was a mistake. I think he could have played the last couple of weeks. The team has no life when he doesn't play. I think let Sam play. This year was about him. We know the coach is gone, and I'm sure the coach is starting to separate a little bit from the GM, who's probably staying. That always creates a little bitterness when that happens.
Let's look at the other AFC East game. Patriots down in Miami to take on the Dolphins. Belichick and Brady have struggled in South Beach. They lost to freaking Jay Cutler last year on a Monday night. So how do you see it playing out this year?
You know, this has always been Brady's house of horrors. It always, you know, there's always one place. And they have always, this has been harder for Tom than going, let's say, to Pittsburgh or playing the Steelers. The Dolphins in Miami have always given him fits. I mean, they really have. So when that happens, do not be surprised. It happens almost every year.
Packers are going to host the Falcons today. Green Bay fired Mike McCarthy. That's the story of the week in the NFL. How much pressure is there now on Aaron Rodgers? And we're talking big picture, not just the rest of the season here.
Oh, I don't think any. And if I were the Packers, I wouldn't even play Aaron Rodgers anymore this year. I think he's been on a bad leg all year. I would shut him down and get ready for next season. And, I mean, the real question is how much Aaron's going to have as far as input into a new coach and what their plan is for him as they rebuild this Packer team, because they've let this thing kind of fall apart in Green Bay.
You got a thought on a new coach?
The Packers, historically, want to pick a guy who's going to be there for a decade. They're not looking for short-term fixes. But the one difference this time is they don't have that much time left with Rodgers. So when that's the case, you got to figure he's got some say in what goes on. And that plays into this. Unless you want to just trade Rodgers off, get back a truckload of young prospects and talent, but I don't think they'd have the nerve to do that. So I think it just changes the parameters because of the fact that you have to deal with the fact that Rodgers is getting old.
You said Eagles-Cowboys is a more pivotal game than you thought this division would produce all season long. So how do you see this game shaking out? Yeah.
If they can get people healthier on this defense, people should watch that. Check the Eagles secondary out. If the Eagles have some bodies back in that secondary, they're coming to play that game. If they don't, well, they're the same Eagles we've seen in recent weeks. But the bigger thing is the statement the Cowboys made. That makes this a different game because the Cowboys, with the statement they made against New Orleans, weren't just talking about winning this division. They were talking about being a playoff factor. And to me, I'll learn in this game whether that defense was a one-hit wonder or the real thing. That was the best defensive effort I had seen in the NFL by a team in years.
Sunday night game is pretty good, too, in the NFC. Bears host the Rams. Statement game here for Chicago.
If they win, it's a statement. I'd be surprised. I think that what you're going to see in this game is these teams are on two different levels. I think the Rams are just better, and I think you'll see that on Sunday night. I think they're on a different level. If the Rams are who I think they are, they win this game by 10 points or more.
All right, 13 minutes until lineups lock, until the 1 o'clock games kick off. Not a lot of time to get to it. So let's go ahead and roll with off-the-wall picks now with Reed Fowler, Julian Edlow, and the fantasy girl, Rosalie Michaels.
So which players are you going way off the board for this week? You each get one pick. Reed, take it away.
Yeah, my guy's Auden Tate. He's a Cincinnati wide receiver from FSU rookies. $3,000. He's the cheapest guy out there. But if you look at this game, it's slated to be lopsided, obviously, for the Chargers. And so I think Driscoll and company have to be throwing the ball quite a bit. Last week, 21 routes, run 7 targets, 3 red zone targets. So when Dalton is out, you look at these guys, right? The backups really obviously have a connection, obviously being second string or scout team. Auden Tate is a big-bodied receiver. I expect him to get red zone touches if they do get in there. The Chargers, 27th DVOA, 4 receivers in that 3 to 4 area. So he'd be my off the wall.
Rosalie, who are you going off the wall for?
Yeah, this is way off the wall because it's something I didn't think I'd be saying at all this year. I'm talking about a Buffalo wide receiver. I'm talking about Isaiah McKenzie. He's at 3,400. I know that Zay Jones is getting some attention, as is Josh Allen. We've been talking about that. But Isaiah McKenzie spends half of his time in the slot. Zay Jones does as well, but now that he's the number 1 receiver, I think they're going to use him outside a little bit more. And they're going to be going against that slot place where the Jets lit up the third most fantasy points to the slot. So Isaiah McKenzie could be a really sneaky play at 3,400 in a game that I think could be a little lopsided. I think Buffalo's going to score a little more points than we're expecting out of them. And Isaiah McKenzie is going to be somebody nobody's going to be on.
Julian, off the wall pick, please.
It sounds like if you watch the Hidden Jewels segment, you already got your off the wall picks from me because none of them were good, right?
Correct.
I'll throw in one last guy for you here with Deshaun Hamilton of the Denver Broncos. He's minimum salary at $3,000. I actually like Reed and Rosalie's picks a lot. I think those are not a lot, but as off the wall picks, I think that they're definitely worth considering. And this guy with Emmanuel Sanders out, Cortland Sutton's going to be getting all the attention. He is the cash game play for sure. But this is the guy that's going to be the wide receiver too in that offense going up against a really poor San Francisco 49ers defense. So a starting receiver in a 3-point spread game against a bad defense for $3,000. I think that's a decent spot to try and go off the wall in some GPPs.
All right, thanks, guys. We've got over, under, and slate approved picks coming up. Last block of the show, right after Adam Levitan and the boys of the DFS Edge give you their Sunday conviction plays.
We can go to Adam's favorite segment, the conviction plays. Adam, why don't you give at least one? Maybe you give out a full roster of conviction plays.
Just give your lineup to people already.
And then I'll toss it to Al.
All right. For the best segment on the entire program, I am going to go with DeAndre Hopkins. And I know the game log watchers aren't going to be too excited to click DeAndre Hopkins. I think if you look a little bit deeper, DeAndre Hopkins continues to play at just a really, really elite level. And this is finally the spot for him to get loose against a secondary that can't match his talent in a game environment that should be really, really good with really, really strong weather conditions as well. So yeah, I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins down at 7,800.
All right. Well, Adam wouldn't answer my question about Alvin Kamara, and I know I've used him as a conviction play about 24 times going back to last year. But I'm going to do it again. I'm going with Alvin Kamara as my strong conviction play. Adam's trying to hide him because he's going to be in his lineup, which means he is an awesome play. Looking this year, he went for 46 points against Tampa Bay early in the season. Obviously, it's a different role with Ingram back, but give me a bounce back for the Saints and Alvin Kamara. Al, your conviction play, and get us the hell out of here.
I'm going to give you guys a trifecta this week for the conviction play. I'm going with the triple Lindy. It's difficult to pull off, but I think that you can do it. Give me Christian McCaffrey to Ezekiel Elliott to Travis Kelce, and I want to find a way to fit that trifecta into one lineup. You know why? Because sometimes you just have to play all the dudes. So
he's giving 33% of the lineup out.
All right, 8 minutes and counting. The clock is ticking, so let's hit them with the quad box. Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, Rosalie Michaels, Steve Buchanan. Some over-under is where we begin. Will these games go over or under the following totals? Saints at Bucks, 53.5, the highest total on the slate. Steve, I'm going to let you take this first one, bud.
This is a tough one. I've been fighting with this one all week. I'm going to go with the under on this one. I liked it a little bit more at the beginning of the week, but I just think that the Saints defense has been a lot better than people have been giving them credit for over the past couple of weeks. And, we all know that Jameis is obviously susceptible to those turnovers and such. So I think it's going to be really close. I mean, this is not going to be like a 27 game or anything like that, but I think it's going to go under.
And Jeff, my feeling is you're going under as well. You think this game's going to be a little disappointing?
Yeah, I like the under. This point total has dropped a little bit. Obviously, I mean, in all seriousness, it has been raining a lot in Tampa. It's stopped, but the field is really soggy. The Saints defense is good. Also, remember, this is a Bucs offense that got 400 yards 1 week and scored 3 points. Not exactly the most efficient unit. I'll take the under here all day. I think it's a good under.
Where are you going, Rosalie?
Yeah, I agree with the guys. I'm going under. I mean, you look at it, it seems like an easy over, but I lived in Tampa for many years. I understand what the rain can do there and how it's always in flux. So, those slippery fields. I'm really afraid of what happens with Jameis today. Steve was right. The defense has been really, really good the past few weeks, that Saints defense. And so I'm really worried about Jameis and those receivers. So I'm going under here as well.
Reed, you making it a clean sweep?
No, I'm going to go over here. I think these guys make good points in terms of being afraid of these defenses, or obviously the Saints playing a little better. But look, it's Drew Brees. Like, these guys got beat by this team back in Week 1. If you believe in Narrative Street, which I kind of do, I think the Saints. I think they come back in a big way. So I'm going to say over.
Reed, Falcons at Packers is at 50, over or under?
I'm going under at this one. I'm sort of in that mindset with Garion as well. I do think Aaron Rodgers does have a good game, but I think both of these teams, I really like the Green Bay defense too as a contrarian pick. So not really loving the Falcons, especially on the road, so under.
Jeff, over or under? What's Aaron Rodgers going to do here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the over here. I'm not as convicted as I was on the under on the Tampa game. But look, the Packers have done really well at home, 29 or more points in 3 of 6 games, and now obviously freed up a little bit. It comes down to Atlanta. If they can put up 20 points, I think this goes over maybe quite easily. So I still like the over.
Rosalie, 1 over, 1 under. Where are you going?
I'm going with Reed. I'm going under here, too. You know what? We're used to these two teams scoring a lot of points, but as of late, they really haven't. You know what? The past 4 weeks, Atlanta's averaging about 17.3 points per game, and Green Bay's averaging like 19.3 points per game. That's under 50 points. So I'm going under. I'm going with the trend.
Steve, over or under 50?
Yeah, trend breaker. This game opened up at 48. It's gone up to 50. I'm going to go with the over on this one as well. People are forgetting these are two secondaries that aren't exactly that healthy. They've been pretty banged up. And before that game against the Ravens, Matt Ryan was tossing the ball so well, averaging 22 DK fantasy points, over 300 passing yards in 4 of his last 5 games. And then Aaron Rodgers being the head coach and all that obviously is a big bump. So I'm going to take the over in this one.
Rosalie, Colts Texans 49, over or under?
I'm going over on this one. I think, I don't know if people got scared with Indianapolis putting up the big goose egg last week, but you know what? In Week 4, this game went 34-37 in overtime. I think it's going to be a really great game. They're averaging really high scores over the year and over the past 4 weeks, both offenses. Yeah, the Houston's defense is really good. And the Colts have turned the ball over a lot this year. So we can see some defensive scoring on the Houston Texans side too. So I'm going over on this.
Jeffrey.
I feel like everyone has been talking about taking the over in this all week, everyone that I've listened to. So it's destined to go under. But I'm going to take the over anyways. Look, Andrew Luck, one of the most efficient QBs in the league. Deshaun Watson can obviously score in multiple ways. The game total's been rising. It's in a dome. You got to like the over here. I mean, I thought this would open around 50. It's still under if it's at 49. So I like the over in this spot.
Reed, where are you going? Thinking maybe the Colts can score a point this week?
Yeah, Jeff's like a soap opera. Like, he leads you one way and then he does the exact opposite. No, yeah, I'm with these guys. I think it's the over here. I think both these teams, better than average, pretty elite run defenses, not so good pass defenses, both fast-paced teams as well. So over.
All right, last but not least, Steven.
Yeah, I'm going to go over on this one as well. I was actually surprised that Houston is just out of the top 10 in average points per game at 25.2. Colts, of course, in the top 10 and 8th at 27.1. Just think there's too many weapons in this game that you'd have to stop. Ebron's in such a great spot. DeAndre Hopkins without Kuti absolutely goes off, and this will be another great spot for him, so I think this is definitely an over.
All right, guys, slate approved pick time. Closing it on lock here.
Let's go.
Steve, who is your must roster?
Keenan Allen, his salary is almost laughable at this point. That is only $7,400 in another huge spot. 4 straight games with touchdowns, averaging over 9 targets a game in that game in that span. There, he's in an awesome spot this week.
Reed, who is your lock for today's main slate?
Yeah, it's Saquon Barkley. Look, we talked about, Jeff mentioned those 4 top elite. This guy is matchup proof. He's obviously making claim on his 2nd overall pick. And Washington's defense, not that good, 30th in stuffed rate. So these guys, these running backs are getting past that line. I love Saquon in this spot.
Rosalie, who is your lock for Sunday's main slate?
I'm going Alvin Kamara. You know what? He put up over 46 DK fantasy points in Week 1. He's getting the carries, and last week they finally got him involved in the passing game once again. We haven't had a true Kamara game in a while. I think it's time. This is bust-out time for our boy Alvin.
Jeff.
Yeah, I definitely like Kamara, but my slate approved, whatever. It's going to be Cortland Sutton. I'm using him everywhere this week. He's too good. I'm eating the chalk. It's a weak secondary. They have to throw him the ball now. This guy's got number 1 wide receiver potential written all over him. So Cortland Sutton, let's get it done.
1 minute to go. Rapid fire questions. Josh Jackson or where, Reed?
Oh, man. Josh Jackson. I know we talked about him potentially splitting, but where against Ravens run defense, that's tough.
Steve, Tyler Boyd or Kenny Galladay?
Galladay, not touching Boyd.
Jeff, Blunt or Traquan Smith for flex?
Blunt. Good spot for Blunt.
Rosalie, which defense should Albin go with, Saints or Bills?
Oh, gosh. I think you got to go Bills. I love the Bills defense against the Jets this week.
Let's see.
I got one. Jeff,
Okay.
Zeke, a better cash or GPP play?
Cash, really. I mean, it's some of the other running backs have a little bit better matchups, but Zeke, obviously, with that immense floor, I like him for cash for sure.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for the sweat. As always, excellent work from our panelists. I'm Jessie Coffield.
Wonderful.
He's Emerson Lotzia. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. And, of course, we'll be back next Sunday. So be sure to tune in to the sweat wherever you watch us.
Deuces.